This podcast is proudly sponsored by Joro Protein, a Rhode Island plant-based protein supplement company designed for athletes and adventurers. They deliver 25 grams of protein, 5 grams of BCAAs, and 18 essential vitamins and minerals. It's non-GMO, it's gluten-free, it's allergen-free, no artificial flavors, no added sugar or stevia, and it has no additional gums, thickeners, or fillers. Right now, you can get 30% off on this podcast with the code Rhody Strength 2022, and you can find them at joroprotein.com.
This podcast is brought to you by Phase CBD. That's P-H-A-Z-E. They are a local Rhode Island company who makes and manufactures a wide-ranging variety of CBD products that are formulated specifically for athletes. It doesn't matter if you're a CrossFitter, a strongman, bodybuilder, or powerlifter. These products are for you. These products range from tinctures to seltzers to even roll-on applicants. By supporting this business, you're supporting a local Rhode Island business and you're supporting this podcast directly. Please check them out at phasesports.com.
All right, what's going on, guys? Dr. Matt here, host of the Rhody Strength podcast. We have another special guest on today, Dave Ethier. How's it going?
Good.
Good. I'm really excited to have you on. This will probably be episode 40 that we're dropping. So yeah, I've been wanting to have you on for a while. So I'm really excited to chat it up with you. And I know you're a very eloquent speaker. Not to set this up for
you.
You
can't say that at the beginning.
Yeah. So every time I talk to you, even if it's like at the Barbell Club or do something afterwards, like a party, I'm like, wow, what Dave just said just really resonated. I felt that deep down. Like even if it's something simple, like,
pressure's on.
The pressure's on.
We're gonna have to get deep.
You're gonna get deep. So just a quick intro. Coach and owner over at Providence Barbell Club, which is in Providence over on Branch Ave. Awesome place. I'm currently training there right now for Bay State games and hitting PRs left and right, which has been awesome.
All credit goes to the club there. Yeah, for sure.
Totally.
It's not the fact that you're focusing on weightlifting right now.
Sure. No, I feel good. I was texting Jared. I'm like, I feel like I got Superman strength right now. And then a week will go by, like, I feel like I can't even walk, but every week's different.
This is the nature of the sport.
Yeah, exactly. Your USAW Level 2, which how many levels are there for that?
Well, that's the old classification. If you're thinking in levels, there's 5.
Wow.
The first 2 are the only 2 you can buy. Right. And
Gotcha.
then you have to apply for the next ones. I've been sitting on my application for my level 3, if you will, which is a national level coach.
Gotcha.
You have to have so many people compete at a senior national meet in order to apply. And I think I have the people, but it's just a matter of taking the time and just filling out the forms and the paperwork and stuff. So yeah, I think you need like 5 people that have competed at either AO finals or the national championships.
Oh, I feel like you guys totally have that.
Yeah. It's just a matter of divvying them up between Jared and I.
Oh, totally.
So you can't repeat somebody, right? So
yeah.
So we just have to get our heads together on that and do it.
Yeah.
Because I think we both could apply at the same time and we'll just get it.
And both get it. Yeah. Because you had guys, AO finals, nationals, and beyond too. I'm thinking Ava.
Ava's, she was on the world. Well, she got selected to be on the youth world team and youth Pan Am's team. Pan Am's got canceled. She got injured right before World, so she didn't get to go. But we've had several people go to Masters Worlds. We've had over 6 to go to Masters Worlds. So it's not the same level, right? Masters is a different level, but yeah, we've got people that are cooking. Yeah.
As far as levels of competition, I think this would be interesting for the people listening too. So weightlifting, you have, you have local meets, and then you have the American Open Series.
Yep.
Is like the next level.
Yep.
And then finals.
Yep.
American Open finals, and then nationals.
Yeah, national championships. So senior national championships is the highest level domestic. competition. And then you have continental championships like Pan Am's. You know, other continents will have their own.
Sure.
And then beyond that is the world championships.
Gotcha.
And there's age grading as well. So we have youth, junior, and then in America we do under 25s. And then it used to be universities, now it's just under 25s. And then senior, and then masters. So once you turn 35, you can opt in to be a master's athlete. And every 5 years, there's a reset of age. So 35 to 39, 40 to 44, so on and so forth. And in the master's level, there's the Howard Cohen American Masters, which is the equivalent of the AO finals.
Okay.
Then there's the Masters National Championships, Masters Pan Am's, Masters Worlds.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then the next step from Worlds would basically be Olympics?
Well, right.
Yeah,
so the World Championship senior, now we're going back to the seniors, like the more traditional. The World Championships is every year, and then the fourth year is the Olympics.
And they don't do Worlds during that year?
They don't do Worlds during that year.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And do you know as far as what the status is for Olympics coming up? Is it kind of like...
Definitely going to happen in Paris.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay.
After that, it's up in the air. It's questionable whether or not the International Weightlifting Federation cleans up its act. So the bureaucracy of the IWF is, I don't think I'm saying anything controversial here.
Sure.
It's corrupt. It's known to be corrupt. They give preference to countries that will give them more money, and they hide, you know, doping samples as much as they can. They've been caught enough times that the IOC says you're on the chopping block if you don't clean up your act. So a lot of what, you know, honestly, a lot of what the USA weightlifting delegates have tried to do for the IWF is lead that change. And Ursula Papagarnza, she was on the board, and then she became the vice chair, I think, of the board, and they removed her because she was trying to clean up the act. So I'm not 100% sure we will be able to refer to it as Olympic weightlifting in another 8 or 10 years. I don't know, you know, but
just world
but
weightlifting?
Well, I mean, it's funny because weightlifting is like soccer. When I'm explaining this to people that aren't familiar with the sport, I say, you know, everywhere else soccer is called football. And everywhere else in the world, this is called weightlifting.
Yeah.
And in our country, it's called Olympic weightlifting because powerlifting is a little bit more popular.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So we need to specify that it's not the norm. We think, in America generally, we think weightlifting is what those in this sport would call weight training. Right?
Sure.
So if you're using a dumbbell or a kettlebell or just resistance training in any way, it's weight training. And then weightlifting, capital W, is the sport of weightlifting, which consists of the snatch and the clean and jerk.
Right. Because when I tell people right now for my competition, so I do a lot of training out of Bullfrog, which is like mostly like a bodybuilding personal training studio. Like, oh, you're doing competition? Like, what is it? I'm like, oh, it's Olympic weightlifting. Like, oh, what are the lifts? Like, snatch and clean and jerk. Like, oh, well, like, what are those?
And then their eyes gaze over. They stare up into the distance.
They're like, oh, cool. Like, no bench. I'm like, no, not for this one.
Yeah. It's not a super total.
No.
Yeah. I mean, that's my life, right?
Yeah,
it's like just having to have that elevator pitch of what weightlifting actually is, you know? Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And I do find myself explaining that to a lot of people. And when I do the lifts at the gym, people are like, a gym that's not like a weightlifting gym, they're like, oh my God, that was insane. Yeah. That was crazy.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, right.
You should be careful.
Yeah. But to be honest, like I'm 6 weeks in the training block right now, which I've just done completely weightlifting. I feel great. Like I had a couple like lingering injuries just because the nature of what I do is I just push myself through a lot. I do CrossFit, surfing, like all sorts of different stuff. But right now that I'm just so focused on one solid program, I'm like, oh, like my tendons are feeling a little better. I'm feeling stronger. So
yeah, that's great. You know, it's with any program, I think about, you know, programming as an experiment, and you're able to measure yourself as a programmer based on the results that you get. How predictable are the results that you're going to get? And if somebody is doing more than what you're programming, it's not automatically a flaw. It's just more white noise in the data.
Sure.
Right. So if you're thinking about the training hall as, you know, the laboratory and the program as the input, how many other inputs are happening? So, you know, yeah, I think that our programming is good, right? But the fact that you're removing other inputs allows you to understand the stimulus that you're experiencing, right? And so you're, you know, so it would follow, right? That if the program is sound
Yep.
and you're focused on it and doing it, then you're going to get the predictable results, which is you feel strong, you feel good, you're recovering because it's not too much, right?
Right.
And yeah, you're fucking slinging bars and hitting PRs. Let's go.
Yeah. So I'm having a lot of fun. The training has been great. So let's we are already on a tangent, which I love it, but we'll continue just a little bit with your bio, and then we can kind of dive into that as we get into it. But so, and kind of like previewing some stuff here, but you were wrestling in college.
Yep.
Collegiate wrestling. Started weightlifting in 2010 at Bethnal Green.
Bethnal Green Weightlifting Club is the oldest weightlifting club in England.
Okay.
And it's so I was living in London. I moved to London in late 2009, early 2010. And I had I guess I wrestled from, very early age all the way through college. And I don't usually tell this story. I grew up doing two things. I did a lot of different sports growing up, but you don't, you do everything as a kid, right? I was on the swim team. I did Taekwondo.
Oh, cool.
And I did wrestling. And by the time I got to middle school, I whittled it down to just swimming and wrestling. But I was also a theater nerd. I was like on stage every single year. I did at least one play every year from kindergarten all the way through college.
No way.
And my senior year of college, there's always two plays a year, one in the spring, one in the fall usually. And my favorite play of all time was getting produced by the college. And there's only 3 actors in this play. And I had seen the play twice, and I had read the play, hundreds of times. I love the play. And the play's called Art by Yasmine Reza. She's a French playwright. Anybody that's interested in reading a play, please go read it. And the play conflicted with the wrestling season. So it was my senior year of college, and I'm debating whether or not to do like my final go around in wrestling or audition for this play and hopefully get cast, right? And bring to life one of my favorite characters. And I did. I got cast, and so I quit the wrestling team my senior year. And my coach was like, he was not kind about that. He didn't have a lot of compassion for me.
Oh, and, I'm sure.
Yeah, like
he probably didn't like him and art are probably two separate things. If I were to stereotype,
yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, and I mean, the truth of the matter is, I was good enough to wrestle in college, but I wasn't great.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And once you get to that level of anything, the difference between 3%.
Yeah.
Right? Like at a high level of weightlifting, high level of any sport, where you land. You may look as good as the next person to somebody that doesn't do it.
Sure.
But that you're not as good. So I knew that I wasn't going to win a national championship.
Yeah.
So I may as well do this play.
Sure.
And when I quit the wrestling team, I said, I am never going to voluntarily sweat again for the rest of my life. I said, I'm so tired of this. I'm so exhausted. I'm so burnt out.
Those practices are hard.
They're tough.
Yeah.
They're tough. Yeah. And so I then went on and to graduate school, and I sat in front of a computer for 80 hours a week. Wow. And it was through the summer as well. I was doing research, and I gained a lot of weight, you know, I just stopped moving, but I didn't change how I was eating. Right. And so I gained a bunch of weight. I blew up like a tick. And when I moved over to England, I was like, if I'm this out of shape now, then by the time I turn 30, I'm going to be this out of shape for the rest of my life.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I gotta lose some weight. So I changed what I was eating, and I went to, at that time, it was the country's only CrossFit gym.
Okay.
I had heard about CrossFit from a buddy of mine in Tennessee who was getting into it. And I showed up.
Rich Froning?
Yeah, so we go way back. Me and Rich, he had a lot more hair at the time. Yeah. So did I. So, so I walk in and I do the 1 month kind of on-ramp thing, and I see this guy doing this weightlifting class. And I had just learned the lifts from the on-ramp class at the CrossFit gym. It was CrossFit Central London. And the coach's name is Sauro Gardenal, and he was an Italian transplant to London. And the requirement was that you had to do a seminar with him before you could go into his classes.
Cool.
And I did the seminar, and I did about 2 more weeks of CrossFit, and I did his class, and I said, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so I started training with him straight away, and not long after training with him. So he kept me, like he had a program that he gave me, and I did 5 triples in the snatch and 6 doubles in the clean and jerk at 45 kilos and 60 kilos for a month straight. And then I got to max out. Right.
Oh, cool.
And there was other stuff in the program, but generally speaking, like, it was just repetitions at lightweight.
Yep.
And then, I my first time maxing out, I snatched 80 kilos and I clean and jerked 100 kilos.
Nice.
And he said, come with me to Bethnal Green. And so I started training at this weightlifting club. Like, he basically said, okay, you're cool.
Yeah.
You know, you can come to the real club.
Right.
And this club in London, it's like a museum. They have Soviet era weights in there. The whole walls, it's about 1,000 square feet. And
what's a Soviet era weight?
Well, like USSR, like from before the Soviet Union broke up.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Weight, like plates from before, like plates from like the 60s.
No way. Okay.
Yeah, like Russian plates from the 60s. And they have these pictures of the people that had trained there before, littering the walls. I mean, there's no free space on the wall. It's just a museum of old stuff. And there was 2 weightlifting platforms, and Sauro would sit there, you know, every afternoon. And I trained with him 4 to 5 days a week for 3 years straight. Wow. And he taught me, most everything I know. You know, you're most malleable, I'd say, in your first 18 months, you know. So how good is your coach in those first 18 months?
Sure.
And then, you know, I kind of still today cross-reference that which I learn against what he taught me. And for sure, I've let some things go that he suggested, especially stuff about programming and recovery.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, the thing about it, and I think this is real, he was a curmudgeon, which is just like a really polite way of saying he's hard to please. Yeah, he's hard to please.
Right.
And it really activated something in me. And I was like, I'm going to get this guy to like me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to get him to give me a compliment, because he never gave compliments. And that's what made me work hard. You know, it was like all over again. I was in a place where I was learning something new, and it required me to use my body in a way that I hadn't used before. I love the solo pursuit of it. I think because I had done so many individual sports where you're still a part of a team, I like being a part of a team, but I don't like if I do my best and we lose.
Right.
I don't like the idea that somebody else maybe didn't do their best.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So this was a sport where I was like, if I lose, it's because I didn't do it.
Yeah, it's on you.
It's on me. Yeah. So anyway, I learned how to weightlift with Sauro Gardenal in London, England at Bethnal Green Weightlifting Club.
That's so cool. And England obviously is like older than the US by far. So like they've probably had, and I don't know when Olympic weightlifting started originally, but probably the history is probably unreal there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's still a Western country. So, there is more of a culture of weightlifting there, but it's not dramatic. It's not like I was learning how to weightlift in, like Russia or China or Iran. But it was still that club is hallowed ground. It's a fixture. There's been so many people pass through there that have gone on to be, Olympic greats, that kind of thing. So
100%.
Cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so I want to skip ahead a little bit. We'll rip through some of the rapid fire questions, and then kind of get a little bit more into, because you are from Tennessee, and then how you ended up coming to the Ocean State. Sure. Little Rhody. So, All right, so first rapid fire, we got favorite coffee shop.
I've been getting the same beans from New Harvest for like 8 years now, and So I'll say my favorite coffee shop, or my favorite coffee in Rhode Island, comes from New Harvest. But I got to give a shout out to Bolt, because Mike Dantowitz is he's a barista there, he's a roaster, and he's a good dude. Like the people at Bolt are great. I don't know too many people at New Harvest anymore. I used to coach 2 of their roasters. Two, Hillary and Nick. They used to roast anyway. Whatever. So I think those are the two. I mean, if I'm going to get coffee and I'm not going to make it at home, I'm going to go to Bolt.
Yeah.
And if I'm making it at home, it's because I have a weekly subscription of the same beans from New Harvest that I've had for a long ass time.
What bean is it?
It's from the Griff Valley. It's a naturally processed bean. So the bean stays inside the cherry while it dries. So all those sweet flavors leach into the bean as it's drying. And so, yeah, it's their Misty Valley. That's what it's called. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. I try. Like for the first couple months, I was like, because when I lived in London, there was one coffee shop that I went to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the greatest coffee in the world. And I came back here to America, and I was like trying all these different subscription services, and nothing was really hitting. And then little did I know, right in my backyard, New Harvest had this, this coffee. I tried it and I was like, holy crap, this may be the best coffee I've ever had. And so I got the subscription, and then like everybody gives me coffee for like a gift, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so let me try. I don't think it's going to be as good, but let me make sure. And I drink it. I'll be like, yeah, that's right. I know what I like. I like what I like. I'm going to stick with it. I have 12 pairs of the same pant. You know what I mean? I have, if I find a shirt manufacturer that I like, and it fits me right, like I'm going to buy all their shirts, and that's just, so it's the same for coffee.
Yeah, I like that.
I buy the same bacon every week. You know
really?
what I mean? Yeah,
hey, you know what you like.
Yeah.
That's good. Next question, we got breakfast spot. Favorite breakfast spot?
My own house.
Yeah.
Nobody makes a better breakfast than me.
Let's go. What's the go-to?
Yeah. Well, I usually have a cup of rice, 4 pieces of bacon, 4 eggs, and then I'll add fruit.
Really?
And I'll drink a liter
rice
of coffee.
for breakfast. That's unconventional.
Have you had a medium egg over a bed of rice?
Yes. I would say probably maybe a Japanese restaurant.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, do that.
Delicious.
Do that tomorrow morning.
All right.
Do that tomorrow morning.
All right.
Break that yolk and let it spread out. I did, for a period of time, I was going to Nick's on Broadway. Wednesday's my day off, and so if I'm going to eat breakfast anywhere else but home, it's going to be that day.
Nice.
And I went every Wednesday for, I don't know, 9, 10 months. I went in one morning. And I don't ever assume that anybody knows me.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was sitting down, and it was the first day that I was thinking about ordering something different. And the server, she came up to me and she's like, the usual? And that broke my heart, because I was like, well, obviously I have to, you can't establish the fact that now you have the usual and then order something different. You'll never be cool. Right. And I was like, what do you mean? And she goes, you have a nickname. I was like, excuse me? She said, you're too breakfast guy.
Do you eat too breakfast?
I was eating, I would go there. Look, man, I'm not this big by accident. I'd go there, I'd eat 2 breakfasts by myself. My favorite thing is go out on my day off, eat breakfast by myself, just read a book or read something. And you're too breakfast guy. I was at the same moment, mortified and proud.
That's
awesome.
What I mean? That's really cool. I like that. Next question, we got celebrity crush.
Brad Pitt.
He's the guy.
It's it.
He's a man.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's not. I don't know what to tell you. He's the coolest dude ever. He's a character actor that's in a leading man's role. He's actually a really great actor. I'm in love with the guy. I always have been. I've been in love with him ever since I saw him, in Thelma and Louise. I'm dating myself there. I mean, that was his first role, but I'm not ashamed to say it. The man's beautiful, and I'd love to spend the rest of my life with him.
Sounds good. Fair enough. Next question, we got travel question. So anywhere maybe that you've recently traveled or anywhere you have planned travel?
Yeah, well, the last trip I took was to Salt Lake City for Masters Nationals. And every time I go there, I've been there 5 times now since moving back, because it's one of these mid-level cities that USAW can secure hotel rates at a certain cost. And so we go there relatively frequently. And every time I'm there, I'm like, why do I not live here? It's so beautiful. I never would have thought, growing up. So I grew up in Tennessee, and the map basically ended at the Mississippi and it ended at New York. Anything north of New York didn't exist. Anything west of the Mississippi didn't really exist. It was not a part of our, culture of just like what you talk about and what you know. And I'm not 100% sure I can point Utah out on a map. I'm pretty sure maybe I could. But I go to Salt Lake and it's so open and you got the mountains and I don't know, it's beautiful. So I'm really not mad when a competition is there.
Yeah.
And then coming up in July, we'll go to Las Vegas for Nationals Week.
Nice.
It will be my second time in Vegas. I'm not looking forward to Vegas in July for a whole week straight.
It's going to be hot.
It's going to be hot. I'm hostile toward the heat. We're not friends. And then I guess this summer, in August, I'm going to go to I go to a lot of live music. I go to a lot of bands, see a lot of concerts and stuff. And I'm the number one on my bucket list is Red Rocks Amphitheater out in Colorado. So I'll be going to see a band that I'm really excited about seeing at Red Rocks. So those are like the three big trips I'd say I've taken or will be taking.
Very cool. And you go to, I know every year along that same line, you go to Folk Fest in Newport, right?
Newport Folk Festivals. Yeah. So when I was in college, I took this class that was on I took two different classes on music. One was on protest music and the other one was on jazz. And in both classes, I watched two separate documentaries, one documentary on the folk festival and the other one on the jazz festival. So, this is something that was so interesting to me because I was like 20 years old when I watched the first documentary on the folk festival. And I said to myself, one day I'm going to go to that festival. Right. So growing up in the Southeast, you're familiar with Bonnaroo.
Yeah, I heard of it.
Okay, yeah. So it's one of the larger music festivals in the country, and it was started by a guy named Ashley Capps, who is from Tennessee. Okay. He went to the University of Tennessee, was promoting music while he was in college, and one thing led to another. So in the Southeast, what he did is he said, I'm going to focus on these underserved markets of Knoxville, Spartanburg, and Asheville, North Carolina, Spartanburg's in South Carolina, and he would get these great bands to come through when they were going to some of the bigger cities. He parlayed that into Bonnaroo, and the first year of Bonnaroo was my senior year of high school, so right after graduation. Cool. And I was going to music festivals, all through high school and college in the Southeast, and so I was familiar with festivals, but I was like, Newport was always the gold standard. It had the most history. So it's capped at 10,000 people. Sure. They only sell 10,000 tickets.
Yeah, it's very hard to get tickets to that.
It's very hard to get tickets. The musicians take a pay cut to go. They do not make the same amount of money there that they would at any other festival, right? So they make about 60% of what they would make. Yeah. So they take this cut. So they really want to be there. Right. And the music IQ of the people that are there is pretty high. And I remember when I moved here, I was like, well, this is great. Like some people think, oh, I'll get season tickets to the Celtics or, something like that. And I'm like, I'm going to get to go to Newport like every year. And I remember going in the first summer that I was going, I made all these friends in Rhode Island. I was like, hey, are you guys going to Folk Fest? And they were like, and honestly, I was aghast. There were like 7 people that were like, what is that? And I was like, your state's most hallowed ground. Like this is one of the most treasured things of this state, in my opinion, from being out of the state. I was like, you don't even know what it is. Like, goodness gracious, how can you grow up here and not have gone? So yeah, I go to the Folk Fest every year. I have my friends that I grew up with, that I went to like elementary, middle, and high school with. They all come in. It's like a friendship reunion for us. Nice. They come in on a Thursday. We go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then they leave on Monday. And it's honestly, it's like, it's my Christmas. It's great. Do you ever hit a point? Because I know they sell out in like an hour, right? Do you ever get nervous? Like, oh my God, what if we don't get tickets this year? Honestly, they sell out in like 2 minutes. No way. They sell out in 2 minutes this year. So if you're a part of the nonprofit foundation, you have to win a lottery to get in there, and then you have to pay an annual fee. With that annual fee, you have 2 guaranteed tickets. Oh, cool. So, well, you still have to buy them, but at least you can buy them. So that's cut our need down a little bit. But yeah, this year we've got a guy without tickets right now. And we're all just kind of, we've got lemon booty waiting to see whether or not he's gonna get one of the resale tickets, because they control the resale tickets. You get in a waiting line so that they're sold at face value. There's no scalping to it. Yeah. So if he gets a ticket, he will be getting a ticket for face value. Huh. It's just a matter, because they sell it so fast, everybody goes in and buys them.
Right.
And then they see whether or not they can go later on in the year.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They sell in like October.
Yeah.
Nobody gets announced. There's no announcements of who's going to be playing.
Yeah.
You just.
I remember that, like, because I've gone a bunch of times, and like we do the whole like either kayak up or like stay on. I've never actually been on the lawn. And I remember like looking at it one year. I'm like, I don't even know who's gonna be there. Yeah. But you just know that there's gonna be really high quality people there. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's 4 stages.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will come up to the boat. That's the main stage. That's the big stage. That's the bigger headliners. I mean, personally, I go to like the number 2 stage because this is gonna sound bad. Most of the people on the main stage I've seen live before.
Cool. Yeah.
So I will go to that second stage because that's where the people who just released maybe their second album are performing, and I've heard their first album, I've enjoyed their second album, and I've never seen them before.
Yeah.
And so that's exciting for me.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong, I'm still going to come over to the main stage for a couple of sets here and there, but it's so much more crowded, and you know what I mean? Like, you just get used to the way you want to operate within something like that. Thanks for listening to the Rhody Newport Fest talk podcast. We're here to talk about strength.
That's just something I was interested. Before we get back to weightlifting, I have one separate question for you too.
Sure.
Disc golf.
Yeah.
Because like it's so interesting. Your Instagram feed is like hitting crazy big weights and then disc golf.
Yeah.
And some music stuff in there.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I'm realizing that I guess I'm just like a weirdo. I'm just like into these obscure sports quarterly, from Dodgeball, the movie Dodgeball.
Love that movie.
I go to these, I go to music festivals, and then I play disc golf, and I do weightlifting. The disc golf thing, I started playing when I was 16 years old, and down in Tennessee, like the culture of it is bigger because you can play for a lot more time in the year. Okay. Like the American Southwest and Southeast, like, the climate is such that you can play for about 10 months out of the year. Now, New Englanders are a different breed. I'm now on Team 401, which is this team for Rhode Island. Yeah. And we play year round. We play against other teams year round. So I'm playing in 6 inches of snow. And in my mind, I'm like, this is nonsense. Like, we should not be doing this, Right. But, like New Englanders are made of different stuff, man. And so they don't care. They tape a ribbon to the bottom of their disc, and they find the disc in 6 inches of snow. But
no way.
So, yeah, I mean, it's nuts. So I started playing when I was about 16 because I could drive and I could take myself to the course. And it was an excuse to get outside and hang out with my friends and just do something. And what I think is interesting about it, and the principles of disc golf are the same as stick and ball. Okay. So you have, a tee shot, you have, something in the fairway, and then you're putting, and your score is the same. How many strokes? The difference is the disc is both stick and ball. So I will carry with me in a bag 30 discs, and each of them has a different job. They have a different shot shape, a different distance, a different finish. So if you want to finish to the right or finish to the left, or you want to go really far, so on and so forth, you'll select your club, but your club is also your ball.
Right.
And, all of the same kind of psychological compromise that comes with stick and ball golf comes with disc golf as well.
I can see that.
And I've now kind of come to the realization that one of the reasons I love disc golf is the same as weightlifting, because there is a physical element. You have to perform. You have to get your central nervous system to tell the message, right? At the right time, in the right sequence, and all that kind of stuff. And it's highly technical. The learning curve is really steep, but then the improvement over time is the satisfaction.
Sure.
And I expect that I'll be weightlifting well into my 60s, you know,
Sure.
and I will be playing disc golf for the same amount of time. So the similarities between the two are striking for me. And it is as much, you know, I mean, you can enjoy it by yourself and you can enjoy it with friends.
Sure.
And those are two different things. And a lot of like, if you're going to be doing it with people, like you want to be doing, I don't care how much weight is on your bar.
Yeah.
I care whether or not you're a good training partner. Right.
Sure,
And
sure.
so disc golf is the same. I don't care if you beat me or if I beat you. I care if we have a good time in the woods together, you know? So I've been playing for over 20 years now. It's crazy to think. And that hiatus between wrestling and weightlifting was when I got really competitive at disc golf. So I would drive 300 miles and stay in a hotel and play in 4-round tournaments for weekends.
Cool.
You know, the cash tournaments. You have a rating, you know, I was trying to get my rating high enough and considering whether I could get some sponsors. These days, I'm so much better at weightlifting than I am at disc golf. And the level at which I can perform in weightlifting is much higher than disc golf, but I still play, you know, in the spring, summer, and fall, I'll play 2 to 3 times a week. But the more disc golf I play, the more my weightlifting is compromised. So I try to have seasons for both, right? So we're in the disc golf season now that it's spring. So Masters Nationals is over. And then about 3 months before Masters Worlds, I'll start to wind down the disc golf. Yeah.
So you have it built into your cycle. That's pretty.
Yeah.
I'll ask you one more question on that and we'll get back to weightlifting.
Sure.
Is there like so I had no idea there was like a whole like formal like ranking like competitive season. Is there like a Tiger Woods of disc golf?
There is a Tiger Woods of disc golf. This is a great question. His name is Paul Macbeth.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you, 2 years ago, he signed a $10 million contract. Okay.
Oh my God.
He is a 6-time world champion.
Wow.
And as a matter of fact, for those that, you know, I assume most of your audience is people in New England, people in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
The #1 disc golf course in the world is in Leicester, Massachusetts, right outside of Worcester. Okay, it's called Maple Hill. And one of the major tour stops of the year is at Maple Hill every September. So I have tickets to go to this the same way I have tickets to Newport Folk Festival. I have to buy them on the day that they go on sale because they sell out. And all the major pros are there. So if you're interested in this at all and you're listening and you're like, what the heck is this? Go to YouTube, type in Jomez Productions, Jomez, Jomez Productions, and watch some coverage because these guys, they're a production company. They cover it the same way the Golf Channel would cover golf. But the good thing about their YouTube uploads is they cut out all the walking in between. So you can watch 9 holes in 30 minutes. And, you know, you can watch that pretty quickly. And it's just like, I'm just good enough at disc golf to know how good Paul Macbeth is.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like he is light years ahead of me. If I'm, you know, the equivalent would be like, he could snatch, you know, 150 kilos if I could snatch 75 kilos. Like that's how much better he is.
Like,
you know, it's crazy.
Twice as good.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm shaky putting from 20 feet and he's lights out from 40 feet. You know?
Won't miss a shot.
It's so great. So yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so we'll transition away from disc golf, go back to weightlifting. So going almost back into the bio a little bit, I just kind of want to shout out some of your most recent comps. So 2022, just a few weeks ago, you were at Masters Nationals?
End of April,
End of April. Took overall second.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Second in snatch, second in clean and jerk, and second in the total. I did not cut weight for that meet.
No.
So this is the first time I've said I'm not going to be bothered. I don't want to cut weight. Yeah. And I knew going in I was going to get second place because this buddy of mine, his name's Tim Rawlings.
Yeah.
He can clean and jerk 190 kilos. It doesn't matter how much I snatch. I'm not going to clean and jerk 190. I'm not going to stay competitive with him. So I can go back and forth with him in the snatch. But when it comes to the clean and jerk, I'm topping out at 175, 176 all the time. And he's opening at 170 and then making a 10 kilo jump to 180 and then making a 10 kilo jump to 190. Like that's, you know, everybody there, like all of us that competed in that session, we all walk out to watch that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, that's another thing that's great about the sport is like, I know I'm not going to, it's not a matter of heart.
Yeah.
You watch March Madness and basketball, like maybe that underdog team will win. There's no maybe with me competing against him wrong. I'm going to get second place.
Right. You know where you're going into it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Where does he lift out of?
He has his own gym in Texas called Raw Barbell.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then your most recent one before that, you were at Worlds.
Yep.
2021. Also took second.
Yeah, I'm always a bridesmaid, never the bride. No, at the World Championships, I've done it 3 times now. I got bronze, and then I got silver. So this last year was better. I got silver there.
Worlds. You could basically say because you were 109, right?
Yeah, I was 109.
So this hit second place in the world, I guess, for your age category, which is unreal. Yeah,
it's bewildering. Yeah. So, sometimes the Masters community, it's about who shows up.
Yeah, sure.
So my very first year at Masters Worlds was 2018 in Barcelona, and the guy that won used to be in the Olympics. He was in the Olympics for France.
Yeah.
And then the guy that got second place, I was talking to him afterward, and he was on the Canadian national team while he was younger. He's like, I just, I used to total 360, but, I just figure a 310 total today is fine. And in my mind, I'm like, I just had the greatest meet to that point of my life, and I totaled 300. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I was like, goodness gracious, So as far as amateurs are concerned, I'm pretty good. Yeah.
Does that ever happen? And probably at this point, not as much, but you're competing and you're in the same weight classes, you're like, oh damn! I follow all your stuff on Instagram.
I remember the first time I went to the AO. So now it's called the AO Finals, right? American Open Finals. But before, it was just the American Open. And I remember the first time going to the American Open. This was 2016. I was only back in the country for a year, I think. But I had been following all sorts of people, on YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that. And I showed up, and I was a little bit starstruck, a little bit intimidated. I was like, do I belong? Am I supposed to be here? Somebody made a mistake. They let this jackass in. I'm sitting there, and Kara Head Slaughter is right next to me, warming up one of her athletes. I'm like, I'm lifting in front of this Olympian. I am a jackass. I should not. This is embarrassing, And I think it's, a certain level of self-awareness, because there's other people that they don't even care, And it just, I guess that's about who you are, but I don't really feel it that much anymore. I think, my perspective always was, as an athlete and as a coach, act like you've been there, and let your work speak for itself. So I remember the first couple of years at those national meets, I was watching a lot of people going up to, especially some of the more popular coaches, Greg Everett or Danny Camargo or something like that. And they were taking pictures with them. Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, he's at work. He doesn't, give him a break. Right. And I wanted to be at a level where it was not a surprise that they saw me. Right. And a little bit of that happened this last trip out to Masters Nationals. I got to outmaneuver. I'm not going to name who it was. A coach who I have admired for a long time, who I have tremendous respect for. Yeah. But when it comes down to a silver or bronze for my athlete, I'm going to do my best to 100%. Screw him and, and get my girl, the silver. And it worked. And then afterward, he came up to me. He was like, hey, man, good job on that. You definitely made the right decision.
No way.
And I was like, all right, well.
That's respect. Yeah. Him or her not being a jackass, be like, fuck you.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, totally. So, I remember thinking I am just another face in the crowd to these people. Yeah. And every year like that, especially with the AO series, you've got these, and I'm not saying this derogatorily. You've got coaches from the CrossFit community who have 1 or 2 lifters who want to compete at this meet, kind of for fun and for the experience. And I celebrate that. The reason that the AO series exists is to give people who will never rise to the finals or national championships level an opportunity to experience what it's like to be under big spotlights and a lot of stress. And I want more of that. I think it's great. But you'll have these coaches who have never kind of coached in that kind of meet before, and they do a lot of things that are kind of against decorum, if you will, right? So the general culture, don't talk, if you're another coach, you should not be talking to somebody else's athlete, right? And you should be, there's certain things you can do to kind of be a little bit more polite in that context. And I'm at a point now where I've seen enough of them that I don't expect to see that guy again next year. because
Really?
they had one flare up. Not the coach I'm talking about, but I'm talking about like the generic coach who has one or two athletes.
Yeah.
And that's their first time. Like they probably won't be back.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking in like 15, 16, 17, that's me. That's what I look like right now. I'm going to make a couple mistakes. I'm going to be seen as a flash in the pan. So I need to just keep my head down and do as good a work as I can. And then 10 years from now, I'm going to be on the same level, or we're going to be on the same level as these other coaches that like, and there is this kind of like second tier, I think, in weightlifting. There's the 10 celebrity coaches.
Sure. Yeah.
And then there's another 50 that are great coaches that have produced results that I trust, the things that they would have to say. And I think that we're starting, I mean, if I may, without sounding egotistical, I think at Providence Barbell Club, I think we've reached that point where like nobody is surprised to see us. And it's a matter, like we stop and chat with, 5 or 10 different coaches that are on that same level that have, 50 to 100 people at their gym in Detroit or Sacramento or whatever, that just don't have the same kind of celebrity presence online that like the Cal Strengths do and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, even locally, I mean, it's different, but you guys show up at a meet, like it's a presence. You guys usually win all the medals, but also like you're obviously super friendly from what I've noticed outside looking in, like with everybody there.
Yeah. I don't think that, as a coach, I don't think I need to be nervous about our performance. I trust what we're doing. I trust that we've prepared our people. And so when it comes to a competition, like I'm going to be friendly with the other coaches because I'm not really competing against them. Right. It's not about them. It's about our people performing the way they're expected to perform.
Yeah. That's huge. And then going back to what you said earlier about the whole like etiquette thing, I remember that's one of the first things when I started training with you guys. I think it might have been 2016. I think when the first at your original location in Providence, when I came in, like the rules of etiquette were on the board, and that was one of the first things you taught me, like don't walk in front of someone when they're lifting, like things along those lines. Like this is how to behave like in a weightlifting gym. It's a little different than like CrossFit or a different gym. Like this is how you do things. So I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it informs I think as a coach, my primary responsibility is to protect the atmosphere in the room. Sure. There's a certain way that I want the gym to be run. There's a certain atmosphere that I think is healthy for people to train in. And there are edges to that. Yeah. Right. So if we think of like a nebulous idea of what the training hall should sound like and feel like, there are edges to it. And I'm comfortable every now and again pushing up against certain edges. On bigger days, like people being louder and, kind of like yelling at each other and egging each other on and trying to kilo each other. That's great. It can't be every day. Right. And there's other days where it should be a little bit more serious, a little bit more focused, and that's great, but it can't be every day. I can't expect someone who will never compete at the highest level to take this as seriously as someone who will. Sure. Right. And if I'm trying to apply that rubric to them, I'm going to suck the fun out of it and they're going to leave. Right. But this is a thing that I love. I want them to love it. Right. So, a balance of, sober and fun is important. Totally. Yeah. We definitely went off a tangent there, but I love it. Because I did want to mention the two or three other competitions that were most recent, just to see if you had any input or notes on those. So we already talked about Masters Worlds, Masters Nationals, 3-time champion, best overall in the age bracket, and runner-up twice as well. Yeah, so I've won Masters Nationals 3 times, and I've got second twice. One of those has an asterisk, I'd say. Okay. Because the year of COVID, we did this like video submission. Yeah. And the guy that won had never been in person before, and I've never seen him since. So like, I got a little bit butthurt about that. Like, whatever, like no big deal. But yeah, of the 3 times that I've won, the last time that I won was last year. That was 2021, and that was my best meet, I'd say, performance wise. And that was where I broke a couple records, and I won best overall male in my age group. So that was the one 176 clean and jerk. Yeah, I think I can't remember what I snatched. I maybe snatched probably 138.
Okay.
I think I snatched 138.
And those are both records
At the time.
Yeah.
At the time. So I don't keep track of this, and we'll get into that. I think I don't keep track of how many times I've broken the records.
Yeah.
I've broken at least 10 records, but they get broken.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They get broken again. So I don't hold any records currently.
Sure.
But yeah, I've broken those records at Masters Nationals. That's the one meet where I tend to perform better at that meet than I do like senior national meets, like AO finals and senior nationals. I think some of that is because, because I say like I don't belong, right?
Yeah.
I'm this old dude. Like I'm always the oldest guy in the session. You know what I'm saying? There's a couple older guys that are still super competitive. Phil Sabatini for East Coast Gold.
Yeah. Yep.
He's maybe a year younger than I am. So he's like 37, 38. And Jason Bonnick, he's still killing the weights and he's 40.
Yep. Yeah, that's incredible.
Nuts. But generally, like I go to AO finals and senior nationals to experience the stress of that competition in order to make myself a better coach.
Sure.
And I go to Masters Nationals to be competitive. To
perform.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And then I guess we'll touch on that subject one last point. Any big lifts recently? And do you know your all-time as far as like snatch, clean and jerk?
All-time snatch is 141. And I only count competition lifts. So my best all-time snatch is 141 and clean and jerk is 176. I have cleaned from the high hang and from the blocks. I've cleaned 182, which is 400. So that's like a special number.
Damn,
right? And then I've jerked 184. So that's something over 400, just maybe 2 pounds over 400. I don't know, my squats and pulls are, I don't know. I did, I remember I think it was 2019, I did a back squat triple at 500 pounds. I think I've done, I did 232 for 5 in the deadlift. I don't know what that is. It's just over 500. 227 is 500. So whatever 232 is, I pulled that for 5.
Cool.
I don't compete in those sports.
Yeah.
My best, like I bench pressed 2 months in a row last year and I did 285 for 5. I was like, oh man, this is cool, And then I was like, all right, I'm going to go back to weightlifting now.
Did you ever do the super total? No?
No, I've never done a super total. Mostly because I've never really been interested in the bench press. I mean, honestly, we'll get into it, I guess, but like most weight training is really boring to me.
Sure.
It's masturbatory. Like I don't want to get big. I don't care about not any more than any other person. Like, of course I have like body image issues. Like I don't particularly find my body attractive. I always wish that I looked like, honestly,
like Brad Pitt.
Like Brad Pitt. I was always jealous of like tall, skinny kids, like tall, skinny boys. Like I felt like the clothes that they got to wear were way cooler. Like you would never find me in skinny jeans. Are you kidding me? Like not that I would want to wear skinny jeans, but it just seems like the clothes that come off the rack are made for somebody like you. Sure. You know what I'm saying? Not for somebody like I'm a box, right? And I've never taken a lot of joy in doing the bodybuilding and the accessory work that comes with weightlifting. I do it because it's important to stay healthy. But so no, I'm no super total. I don't particularly enjoy deadlifting. Squatting is fun. Squatting is fun. But when it gets heavy and that's hard work and I'm not, a heavy clean and jerk is hard work, but it's sexy. You know what I mean? It's fun. It's like,
and it's skill. There's a lot of skill.
You got to do it right. Like if you got to do it. You can make a slight mistake in a deadlift and still get it. Of course, I'm sure there's some powerlifters listening to me right now, like rolling their eyes, like you have no idea the type of technique that's required to do it. And like I honor that. I honor that. Of course, it's just not my domain.
Sure. Yeah. So it's along those lines. my girlfriend, fiance now, Liz, came into the gym one day. This was like probably maybe about a year ago now, and she was like, I don't know if you remember this. You're like, oh, when are you gonna try some weightlifting? She goes, and this was at the time she didn't. She's like, oh, I don't exercise. She's just one of those type of people who's like never exercised in her life. She's always been super skinny.
Yeah.
Which most people are like, what the fuck? But yeah, she's like, oh, I don't really exercise. You go, oh, I don't either. This is what I do for fun. Like, this is weightlifting. I don't exercise. Yeah.
I don't. I hate exercise.
And she just looked at you like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
Yeah. It's a craft. It's meditation.
Yes.
That's what I do. It's meditation. It's transcendental meditation. It just happens to look like exercise to a lot of other people.
All right, so we'll move on from the competition history a little bit. We'll get into some of the nuts and bolts of Providence Barbell Club and your training. So let's talk about PBC a little bit next. So how did you end up coming to start that?
Okay. So when I moved, so I had been coaching in London for my coach. I had coached wrestling, right? At the end of my college run, one of my teammates, he got named head coach to a wrestling team there in Tennessee, and he asked me to come coach with him. And I had always planned on being a teacher. Like I like helping other people. I like teaching stuff. And I really like the satisfaction of like teaching somebody something and then seeing it get better. Right. So that's like that, I'll never get tired of that. Right? Yeah. And so when I was in London, I was working from home a lot, and I was it was a whole different life as far as the nature of my work and stuff like that. And so the coaching part was really exciting to get a taste of that again. And when I moved here to Rhode Island, I was training at like 3 different gyms, and I made friends with different people. One of them was at Ocean State CrossFit, and that pretty early on, the guy who owns it now, Ray Fleeser, when he found out that CrossFit Providence had hired me to be the assistant coach at Providence Barbell Club, he came to me and he was like, David, we don't want to lose you. We'll give you a place to train if you coach 1 day a week, a weightlifting class at 8 a.m. on Sundays. So I did that for several years because I was going to just use that place as a place to train. That's where a lot of my friends were. Yeah. And there was this other gym called Team 3, who this chiropractor named Michael Pepin.
I've heard Pepin.
Yeah, so he's up in Attleboro now.
Okay.
And he has his own shop, and he's doing well up there. But he had this place off Mineral Springs. Okay. This is ridiculous. It was like in a strip mall, and right next to it was a beauty salon, and he had 3 platforms. And, no way. And I Googled, Olympic weightlifting when I moved to Rhode Island, and I found their website, and it was like really a well done website, and I got really intimidated. And because I had I could not compete in the British National Championships because I wasn't British. Okay. So I could do local competitions, but I had no idea where I stacked up. Yeah. Right. And so I come to America, and I'm like, I call them up, and they're like, hey, you say you have like 3 tiers of teams, and it was based on what level you were at. I was like, I don't really know where I am. And I show up, and the very first night we get the cops called on us because I'm dropping these clean and jerks. And the beauty salon is like, you're shaking our building. And they were like, yeah, So I met a couple people so there was a little group of people that would train there 1 day a week. We had to wait until 8 p.m. on Thursday night. So I would train from 8 to 10 p.m. on Thursday night. And people would write these ridiculous complexes, like 7 movement complexes. But Dave Cardenas was one of the guys was training there, and the Braziers, Nikki Brazier, Matt Brazier were there, and Corey Lafort, who then went on to Ocean State as well. So Dave Cardenas was coaching at CrossFit Providence. He calls me up one day. He's like, Dave, I just got put in charge of the Providence Barbell Club. I'm 25 years old. I know I need help. Yeah. Will you come in and help me? So I was there kind of like, he was the head coach. He was doing all the administrative stuff, running the programming and everything. And about 6 months later, he was like, I'm going to go with Kelly Carson. We're going to start Industrial Evolution CrossFit. Oh, okay. And he has now since started Windrose.
Windrose,
right?
yeah.
And I love Dave to death. He's a great dude, you know?
Is.
And at that age to know, you know, like, hey, I need some more help in the room. You know, it was really mature of him.
Super mature.
He's always been a guy. He was actually Ava Georgie's first coach. He taught her how to weightlift. And then she went to youth nationals the very first year.
Unreal.
When they came back, he said, if she's going to go anywhere further, you need to send her to the Providence Barbell Club. Like, it was his humility that gave her the opportunity to train under, you know, our club to go where she is now, you know. So I can't speak highly enough for him, but he left. And then they, you know, the guys that owned CrossFit Providence at the time, they called me up and they were like, are you going with them or are you going to stay with us? And I was like, well, that depends. You know what I mean?
Right.
That depends. How much are you going to let me run this shop the way I want to run it? And they're like, we're fine with that. And I was like, let me write you a proposition paper. And so I wrote, you know, I looked into my crystal ball and I was like, look, you guys are operating this kind of like as a way to get some extra income for the gym, but you're not pouring into it the way that it needs to be. So you're calling it a weightlifting club, but it's not really a weightlifting club. We had like 3 bars and like 1 set of plates, and they weren't open for very long. It was like 3 days a week, or it was 4 days, but it was like an hour and a half at a time. And I was like, we got to increase the hours. We got to get some more resources and make it a club, or you can just keep the status quo. And they were like, no, we're fine with the status quo. That's okay. Sure, I was like, all right, fine. So I did that for, I don't know, about 9 months or so. And about once every 4 or 5 months, I would say, hey, can we buy this? Just this one thing. We just buy like 1 more set of plates or change plates. You know? And they're like, okay, fine, we'll do that. You know, and so we started to, I was just like dope fiending them into getting more stuff for us, you know? And then, started training with Jared, you know, semi-frequently, and he would come in on Saturdays. So I got like, I negotiated 2 free memberships. One was for my buddy Kyle, one was for Jared, you know, so they could come in and train for free. And so they started training in the evenings. And I thought it was healthy for the people that I was trying to coach to see some people a lot further down the road. Because at the time, there weren't that many people that were really developed in the sport, right? And Jared was already on the national level. And then he would come in on Saturdays and we would coach together. He was like, I'd like to do this, you know, and then after about a year, I told him, I was like, hey, I'm going to make them an offer. Because I think I want to control my own destiny with this. I think I had an idea of how a club should be run. And he said, well, I'd like to do it too. And so we decided that we would do it together. And we based it on what we thought would make for a proper balance of like honoring the tradition of the sport while also bringing in some more contemporary elements of how a culture of a club in 2017 should be. You know what I mean? And so we did that. And I think it was April of 17. So that's been 5 years now that we've owned it ourselves. And then when we bought it, there were 11 people that were there. And now we have a strength and conditioning program, and we're over 100 people. I don't keep tabs on, you know, like, but we've grown, you know. And after the first year, I guess it was in year 2 that we moved to our location that we're at now. And that was a big risk. I remember stressing it because we had enough money to make the move. But we didn't have enough money for like the 4th month's rent. You know, we're like, Jared and I are very different people, but on certain things we're almost the same. You know, and one of them is like how conservative we are with like spending the club's money. Like we're not extravagant. Like everything we have is need-based. And we were like, we better grow like right away. Like I had to personally guarantee the lease, like that, you know, I had to sign my own name. But you know, it worked, you know, and it's just about betting on not so much ourselves, I don't think, but betting on our idea, right? Which is that a certain type of culture, a certain type of atmosphere, you know, a certain level of of seriousness balanced with fun.
Yes.
And it's, you know, I mean, so yeah, that's kind of the history of the club, I'd say. You know, it's different now than it was when we first started, and
Oh, totally.
the turnover is not very high, but a lot of people that were in that early days, they're now training with the strength and conditioning program.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of people have transitioned what we call upstairs, because
Yeah.
for those that don't know, downstairs in our building is 4,000 square feet, but it's 2,000 stacked on top of each other, and it's a long rectangle. And downstairs is 8 platforms for weightlifting, and it could have been 10, it could have been 12, but we purposely kept it at 8 because we wanted people to have to share.
Yeah.
We wanted people to get in each other's way a little bit, because that's what happens when you go to the master or to national championships. Like, you have to share with somebody else that you don't know. They're going to behave differently. You're going to be loading and unloading a bar. Like, you should get jostled.
It's psychological.
Totally. It's all deliberate. It's
by
all
design.
It's by design.
That's pretty cool. All right.
So we went, you know, we had 7 platforms in that original room, but it was 888 square feet. We went from 888 square feet to 4,000 square feet, but we only added 1 platform, right? And that was it was on purpose. You know, we used to sit and talk about this all the time. I remember those days. And so, yeah, but upstairs is, you know, we got turf, we got several squat racks, and Jeremy Sembron runs that program, and he'll be a great one to interview.
Yeah.
But yeah, that program has grown a lot since we moved in there, and that was the goal. You know?
And there's not really that I can think of like many standalone barbell clubs. From what I've seen, I feel like a lot of them are attached to within another gym, mostly CrossFit gyms. But there's not many just like this is a barbell club and that's it out there. I feel like
I mean, there's not, but.
Which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. It was. I remember we were sitting there. Jared and I were sitting there. We thought. Honestly, I thought I was gonna keep all my other jobs. I had like 3 other jobs at the time, and I was like, I'll coach 10, 15 hours a week. You know? So long as it pays for itself. Like, I don't need to make a lot of money off of it, whatever. And we tripled in size in 3 months. And I was like, awesome. Holy shit. Like, our idea, people are into it. Our idea, you know, like that this can be a thing. It can be its own thing. And I remember the headaches of learning how to scale an operation that quickly. I was still getting used to like doing the accounting, and I all of a sudden I'm like having to figure out all this different. Anyway, it was a learning experience, and I would still say today, you know, like, we're much better weightlifting coaches than we are business operators. Yeah. You know, like, you know, there's no doubt. I mean, there's a book called The E-Myth about entrepreneurs. Have you read it?
I haven't. It's on my list.
It's on
you
should read it. You know, it's basically like, oh, you're really good at one thing, so you decide to start a business to do that one thing, and you wind up never doing that thing anymore because you have to do everything else that comes with running a business. You know,
I could totally see that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But no, I think that says a lot. We'll move on a little bit because I want to get into like your training recovery. But and we'll probably finish up with that because I'm sure we're just over. We're an hour 10 in now, but so I won't spend too much more of your time, but I just get a little bit into recovery. I mean, again, outside looking in, like, part of the reason you guys hit that 3 month, like, you jumped, I feel like is because like you're very like personal people, both of you, and like I feel like people will follow you. They're like, oh, he knows what he's doing. I like the way he coaches, like what he does. Like, I'm gonna go and do like what he does. It's almost like like both of your personalities in a way, like very different, but magnetic in different ways. Yeah.
And that's the danger though.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that a lot of these more niche gyms they can be a cult of personality.
Sure.
And when you get too blinded by that as an athlete, then you may be going down the wrong road. True. Right. Like that coach that you believe in may not know as much or may just be wrong, right? And then on the other side, as a coach, if I think that the moment I think I'm done that's a problem, right? Like when I think that I know enough or know it all, then I'm in trouble, and I'm gonna start leading people the wrong way. So so yes, I think you're right that a lot of people are very happy with Jared and I. And I would include Jeremy and Tommy upstairs too.
Totally. Yeah.
I think we do. I think I try not to think too much about reputation, because as soon as you focus on that, then that becomes the only thing you can think about, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But it's healthy to have an appraisal of yourself in the eyes of others. And I think people enjoy our company, and to train at the Providence Barbell Club is an enjoyable experience, not just because of like the equipment or the community or the programming, but also the tone of the coaches. Yeah. Yes, I do think so. But if that's all I can see, then I'm going to start to think that I'm either bigger than I am or better than I am, or I'm going to take something for granted.
Sure.
Right. So that's can't
rely on that.
It's a double-sided edge, or whatever it is.
I like that. All right, so we'll dive in a little bit.
I'm going to say one more thing. I'm going to say one more thing about that. Yeah. I think this is the point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
I'll begin to think it's about me.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
That's the thing I'm trying to protect against. Well
said.
One of the things I think on our social media, like we are not featuring ourselves.
True.
On the Providence Barbell Club's page, like you're not going to find us a lot. Yeah. It's not about me. Yeah. And as soon as I think it is, I'm screwed. Yeah. I think that I'm screwed. It's an approach, there's a lot of different books on leadership and books on coaching and stuff like that. And I subscribe to the servant coach mentality, right? Okay. That I am there to, their time doesn't belong to me, right? Their training doesn't belong to me. Sure. I belong to them. I'm here to serve them in the best way that I can. And that seems to work so far.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And not to beat this to death, but another book I just read, Good to Great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's another concept, is like, all right, it's a team. Like everybody's in this together. It's not just like one person.
I read that book right before we bought the club.
No way.
Yeah, and the hedgehog principle, that was it. So, I mean, for those of y'all that haven't read it, Good to Great is an incredible book, even if you're not interested in business. But the very first lesson that they talk about is find out what you're good at and do that thing. Yeah. Right? And that's why we were a barbell club.
Yeah, right.
That's why we were staying on.
That's very hedgehog.
When we began to add the strength and conditioning, it was because it was like, we can do this, but we're not going to do it. Yeah. Jared and David are not going to run it. We're going to get somebody else to run it, because we are going to keep to this hedgehog principle of being the best weightlifting coaches in the state. If not first it was, let's take over Rhode Island, then let's take over New England, and then let's beat them all on the Eastern Seaboard. You know what I'm saying? Let's go.
I like it. You guys are marching forward. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. All right. So, well said. Yeah. Let's transition. All right. One more point I want to make on not that topic, but along PBC. So you guys have run a bunch of seminars, and I took a note on this because I want to talk about it just briefly.
Sure.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's funny. This goes back to us being better coaches than business owners. The first few seminars that we did, we had a guy that found us that came down from somewhere in Massachusetts. It's like an hour and 20 minutes away.
No way.
Yeah, and he bought a punch card, and he would make the commute once a week. And then he was at a CrossFit gym where they didn't focus a lot on barbell stuff. Sure. And he was like, you guys, you've got to do a seminar. I've got tons of people that would like to do that. And we were like, sure, in time. His name's Constantine. He's a beautiful person.
Oh, okay.
You know Constantine.
He was in just last week.
Yeah. He stopped by, yeah. So he organized the first seminar that we did. He got all his friends from his CrossFit gym, and they all came down. And, there's not a lot of uniqueness that you want in a seminar, right? Sure. You want to teach the snatch and the clean and jerk. If you're trying to come up with a new way to teach the snatch and the clean and jerk, you're probably a circus clown, right? There's a way to teach this. Yeah. There's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it. And that's just, I'll go to my grave saying that for sure. I'll die on that hill. And so, the first couple seminars that we did, it wasn't that we were doing them wrong. It's that we were trying to do it all at once. So we said, all right, come down for 4 hours. We'll do 2 hours on the snatch, 2 hours on the clean and jerk. Yeah. And these poor people, they were so exhausted, by the end of it. So, we wound up we did, I think 3. It was like one a year with those, it was a different group every time, but it was Constantine kind of leading the charge. We've had a lot of people you should do this, you should do that. There's the people always trying to get us to do more, but it's kind of like, well, again, the hedgehog principle. Yeah. We're not a seminar gym. We're a weightlifting gym. Yes, we want to train, but we can take the time to do it. So we wound up it's always people on a punch card. So we had Dawn Marie from CrossFit 508. She was coming in and she was getting ready for like Wadapalooza, and she wanted to get her, she wanted to get more consistent in the snatch and clean and jerk. So she was dropping in like twice a week. And she was like, hey, you guys need to come out, So we went out there, and that was the first time we said, we're going to do it on 2 weeks. The first week is 2 hours, and it's the snatch. And the second week is 2 hours, is the clean and jerk.
That's the way to do it.
And then, and so we did that with the Rhode Island State Trooper Academy as well. Cool. This past year. I can't even remember. It was about a year ago. Yeah, that was a really neat experience to go in. They had gotten some grant money, and they had gotten funding for like a complete. It kind of looks like a CrossFit gym in their gym facility area, and we had a great time teaching them. And so we'll do that. We mostly do that on kind of somebody pokes us and says, "Hey, we want a seminar." So I guess if you're listening and you want a seminar, holler at your boy. You know what I'm saying? Right. Come on down.
Poke us.
Yeah, poke us, and we do it. We have a good time with it. I think that we've kind of got it. It's like a greased cog now.
Yeah.
Jared and I work pretty well together, and usually it's like one of us he'll do the snatch, and then I'll do the clean and jerk. And we'll mill around the room, and usually, we have a period of time where people put into practice the things that we've taught them, and there's always several PRs in the room. That's always fun.
Yeah, that's good.
It's cool. It's cool.
Awesome. All right, so last topic, I guess we'll get into. So I did want to talk about your recovery, and we took a couple notes on here. But I'll let you take it away. So as far as what you're doing, as far as like sleep, rest, stretching, like that type of stuff.
Yeah. So I train 4 days a week, no more than 4 a week, sometimes less than 4 a week. I've been in the same schedule for probably 5 years of Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. Those are my days. If I am going out of town, I will not necessarily add Wednesday in order to miss Sunday. Like if I miss a day, I miss a day.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to say. I don't do more than 4 days a week. Now, the nature of the training that I'm doing, I think 5 is too many.
Yeah.
And I think 1 is better than 7, 2 is better than 6, 3 is better than 5. So if I'm not going to do 4, I'll do 3. And I'm saying that because that was a really tough lesson for me to learn. Early on, because I came from wrestling and it was such a churn, and it was every day, and it was 3 hours a day. I was used to that, and I was very much a more is better kind of guy. And so when I got into it, in the first 2 years, I was 5 days a week, and then I'm older now. I'm 38 years old, going on 39, and I do not recover the same way.
Sure.
And so my training regimen, is 4 days a week. I used to do 5 exercises in a training session, and now I do 3, and I'll do 4 on Sunday, right? Wow. So that's different, right? Yeah. So I'm doing less volume, but the intensity is still pretty high.
Sure.
The problem, I know that sleep is the answer.
Yeah.
There's enough information out there that says sleep is the answer. I'm still a little bit of a child. I get FOMO. I think if I go to bed at a certain time, they'll win. Whoever they is, I don't know, but they're going to win. If I go to bed too early, they're going to win. I'm going to miss out on something.
Yeah.
And it comes from my childhood. My childhood wasn't like the most, I don't know, whatever. Like I got sent to bed when it was still light outside, even in the fucking winter. You know what I mean? I could hear the ice cream truck outside, and I'm in bed, and I got diagnosed with insomnia when I was like 9 years old, and I'm not insomniac. It's because I didn't want to go to sleep. I would just stay awake. I would just lay in bed, listen to music, and stay awake. And I just hated going to bed. So I'm trying to, I've gone from like 5.5 hours of sleep on average to 7 hours of sleep, and that's huge for me.
That's really big.
Made a big difference. Made a big difference. Can I get to 8? We'll see. I think the older I get, the more important it's going to be. The more disciplined I'll be. So, when it comes to nutrition, lean protein and vegetables and rice. I eat a lot of rice, I'd lost a bunch of weight, right? So when I was really starting out in this, I was 85 kilos and I was very minimal with the carbs. And then I wanted to see how strong I could get. So I was like, I'm going to go from the 85 kilo weight class to the 94 kilo weight class. These are the old weight classes.
Sure.
And I felt so much better. I started eating rice and I was like, oh my goodness, like I was killing it. I got so much stronger, so much faster. I was like, I was an idiot before. And I just kept doing that, right? So I'm
more is better.
I'm walking around at like 112 kilos now, and but I didn't cut the weight because I'm 115 right now. Let's go. You know what I mean? It's been a year of plenty in the food category, but I'm at a point now where like it's not really serving me anymore.
Sure.
So I am going to, I've been saying this for a couple of years. This time I mean it. I'm gonna start going down in my weight classes, and I think I'll be a 102. So I'll be a little bit more considerate about my macros, that balance and that kind of stuff. I've seen it work enough. Like that's the route. So I think, I think generally speaking, there's three types of recovery. And the recovery that most people focus on is the physical recovery because it's the easiest to see. There's the most information out there when it comes to physical recovery. You can read, as well as I do, there's people talking about physical recovery all the time. So, stretching and foam rolling and, chiropractors or acupuncturists or physical therapy and dry needling and cupping and massage and all that kind of stuff. And, how much training you do and how much sleeping you're getting and nutrition. That's all. I would put that all under the physical recovery category. And I'd give myself a C- on that. Sure. Honestly, I'd give myself a C- on that. And that's a passing grade. That's average. I'd say I'm pretty average. I get a massage maybe 4 times a year. I don't know. That kind of stuff. Like generally speaking, knock on wood, I've been pretty lucky to have like no real injuries in the sport of weightlifting. That's awesome. In wrestling, I had a couple of injuries, but I was younger then. I healed better. I haven't had too many injuries to have to work back from. I've had some stuff that has stopped me from training. Sure. I've had some back stuff that stopped me from training. And that happens about every 18 or 19 months. And usually that happens if I change my nutrition, if I change my sleep. Like it's not my training.
Yeah.
Right? The training doesn't do it. It's the sleep and the nutrition that changes. When I say, okay, I'm going to lose weight and I just stop eating carbs for a week and my back goes out. What an idiot.
Your body's
you'd think I would know
we
better.
Reject this.
Yeah. So there's that, right? The physical recovery and there's plenty of stuff out there. I think that mental recovery is an important thing. And that's probably the second most popular thing to think about and talk about, especially now that it's become more acceptable to talk about mental health. Sure. I'm in full support of people talking about mental health and personally I've been diagnosed with all sorts of different things, sure. Generalized anxiety disorder and depression. And so there's things that I have to do to take care of my mental health. Yeah. And how I'm taking care of my mental health will express itself in my training, not the other way around. Right. Sure. So if I'm not taking care of my mental health, then my training will suffer. My head is like a bad neighborhood. I don't want to go in there by myself. Right. Sure. That's just it. And so what can I do? How seriously do I take my own mental health as a part of my training? Right. So if I want to be serious about the sport that I'm in, whatever sport it is, if I'm not taking my mental health seriously, it doesn't matter how much I foam roll. Right? I'm going to step onto the platform and I'm going to hate myself and I'm going to tell myself I can't do it. Yeah. Right? That's just how it expresses in myself. It doesn't matter. I don't want to get too specific. It's better to say general so everybody can hear themselves in what I'm saying. Right? Yeah. So it doesn't matter the symptom. Right. Right? It's the underlying thing. The underlying thing is whether or not I'm taking care of my own sanity. Yeah. How close am I to reality? How close am I to the truth? How accurate do I understand myself? Right? My own assets, my own liabilities, what I can and can't do. Yeah. That which I cannot do, I need help with. Sure. Right? And that which I can do, I better freaking do it. Because if I'm relying on somebody else to do that which I can do, then I'm also going to be in trouble. Yeah. Right. So mental health is, but there's a lot of resources out there. There's a ton. Yeah. There's a ton. But I would give myself a better, so the physical recovery, I think, is my worst grade.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Mental health recovery, I think, recovering as far as like, outside of the training session, take it seriously. And it's important to take seriously. It's not anything to, I don't know. I mean, I'm happy to talk to anybody about mental health.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Totally,
Like if you're still in 2022, too scared to talk about mental health, brother, get some help.
Help you out, brother.
I don't know. Like I was raised by women. I have like an emotional intelligence, but like if you look at me, like I'm still like a relatively masculine dude, like it's okay. Like it's okay to go to a therapist. Like it's okay, like whatever. Like anyway, so but I think the third thing, and I think this is the thing that people don't talk about, don't think about, aren't pushed to consider or reject out of hand. I don't know, because I don't know other people, right?
Sure,
but I think there's another domain of recovery that is slept on, and that's spiritual recovery. And I'm not talking about having a belief in some monotheistic God or something like that. I'm talking about, and this is for me, right? So you're asking me this question. Totally. For me, I think that my opinion is that I'm at my worst when I feel disconnected, separate, apart from, different or unique. All of those things come together and they create isolation. Okay. And isolation, in my opinion, right? I'm not saying I'm a guru or I'm an expert or anything. This is my opinion. This is the worldview in which I operate. Isolation is the enemy. It takes me away. And I've already said, like, I don't need to go into my own head by myself, right? But beyond that, I think I'm using the term spiritual because it speaks to an ephemera, a thing that we can't quantify or necessarily measure it tangibly. Like it's the thing, it's the je ne sais quoi, or the X factor that you can't see or feel or touch. What is that extra thing that puts me in a certain mood, right? That prepares me on a deeper level to train or to go out of the gym and then continue on with my life. Sure. We think about meaning and purpose. A lot of the time people, when they're talking about like mental health, they'll talk about meaning and purpose. I tend to categorize that into the spiritual level rather than the mental health level, because I can do everything and still not feel purposeful when I go to the gym, right? Mental health wise. So for me, I think that paramount in that spiritual recovery is meditation. Sure. And personal inventory. So what am I doing today? What have I done today that I feel good about, that I don't feel good about? Where was I wrong? And do I need to make it right? Where was I scared? Where was I dishonest? Where was I fearful? Those are the three things that will trip me up, right? Okay. Fear, resentment, and dishonesty. Sure. Sometimes resentment too. We could put resentment in there.
Sure, sure.
And so this to me is the seed in which the flower of weightlifting grows. Okay. This is not the end. This is the beginning, right? Okay. So I'm not driven by the medals or the results. And this is, I think, dangerous for me to talk about publicly. I don't usually talk about this publicly because I don't want to be misunderstood as somebody that genuinely doesn't care about performance. I care about performance, right? And I think that, especially in a sport like weightlifting, we learn, we practice, and we test. That's any sport, especially strength sports. Right? You learn, you practice, you test. And for me, testing in the training hall is not the same as testing in competition. Oh, totally. Right? Like the conditions are different. They're predictable. I can take as much rest as I want. I can put my favorite song on. I'm with my friends. I feel good. I slept good the night before. When we went to Barcelona in 2018, the competition hall, it was like 100 degrees that day. In Salt Lake City, I was in altitude. Yeah. Like I cannot control these factors. My training, I had to compete at 10 p.m. Eastern time at this last competition. I do not train at 10 p.m. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm winding down for the night.
Right.
So if I can't control those factors, that's a test.
Yeah.
Right. So learn, practice, test. This is an approach to the sport that I value in the sense that if all I care about is what I win, two things. One, let's say I win. Then what?
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah.
What's left?
Right.
You climb to the mountaintop, there's just lightning and thunder up there, right? Like if I cannot enjoy the journey on the way up,
sure,
I'm not going to last, right?
Sure.
Like what do you do once you reach the top? If all I'm doing is trying to get to the top, maybe I'll get there. Yeah. And if I get there, I'm going to realize that it was about the journey, but I've already done it. Yeah. So it's too late, right? Yeah. And the other thing is I might not get there. True. Right? If all I care about is competition, what if I lose? Because if all I care about is competition, odds are I'm thinking about beating someone else.
True.
Which is a line in the sand. That's disconnection. That's separating me from you. And I will come away from that not better. I will come away from that worse than I was before. So my worldview is ultimately that like I am here to learn how to love. Right. And I'm here to learn how to love in whatever way, like that's the curriculum. Like there's just the one curriculum. Now, how long it takes for me to get through that curriculum is what I'm going to learn for the rest of my life. Right.
Sure.
But I'm here to learn how to love. And so if I invest in a mindset that competition is about separation from me and you, I'm not personally, I'm not going to do that well. I'm just not going to do that well. If I am thinking that competition is a way for me to test the work that I've done, I'm going to do well.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. And I think, I've held this perspective since I've started. And I remember thinking like, this is a thesis, right? This is my thesis and I'm going to test it. And I'm going to see whether or not it can come true. And I think, I mean, how many times do I need to win a competition for me to kind of like relax into the realization that like, maybe I don't need to be scared about talking about this because the proof is in the pudding, right? Like I've won enough competitions at a high enough level that like, at least there's something to this, right? Yeah. I think if you go into any one extreme for too long, you're probably going to miss the mark, right? Okay. And I found myself a little bit too into the like, so for me, the spiritual recovery element, like meditation, regular inventory, reading certain books that ask me questions or that make suggestions to things for me to consider that are not just myself, right? It's like trying to recognize that which is larger than me, that I'm a part of something greater. I'm staying as general as I can, but this is both metaphor and reality in weightlifting for me. Sure. That everything that I do in weightlifting is an expression of this worldview, but it's also more evidence metaphorically for the worldview. All the cliches that we have in the sport are part and parcel for this worldview itself. And I've been around long enough now to see that those that are on the other end of the continuum, which is to say they're driven almost exclusively by competition. Yeah. With a few exceptions, they don't last. Yeah. Right? Like all my training partners that I had, they're not my training partners anymore, Yeah. Now some of that is down to injury and life circumstance and all that kind of stuff, Yeah. But I think I'm rambling a little bit. I'm getting caught up in my own words, but I think, when it comes to recovery, if we're thinking about how to bring ourselves back to a place where we can then perform, that's what recovery is, right? Yeah. So physically, sleep, nutrition, taking care of the body, that brings us back to a place where we can physically train. And mental health, mental recovery brings us back to a place psychologically that we can train. I'm talking about the heart. Yeah. Right? I'm talking about whether or not my heart is into it. Right. And why am I doing this? Right. Like, why am I doing this? Right. If I can answer that question in the gym, I can probably answer that question when I leave the gym. True. And this is the thing that like this underlying kind of like, am I passively experiencing the undertow of life? Or am I actively swimming with it?
Right.
Because if I'm just doing the next thing that I think I'm supposed to do,
right,
because I think I'm supposed to do it, I'm never asking myself what I'm really meant to be doing. It's like Thoreau said, right? Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. Like that's the reality. That's a thing that's going to happen. How many people are just like generally uncomfortable? But there's a certain distorted comfort in known pain, right? Like I'm used to being, like unhappy or, like whatever. And so, well, I'm going to the gym because that's what I do.
Sure. Okay.
Well, you're going to hit a plateau.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to hit that plateau, but you're taking care of yourself physically. I'm doing all the, I'm sleeping 8 hours a night. I'm hitting my macros. Why am I not PRing? It's because you don't have your light is dim.
Yeah.
Right? Like the fire is down to an ember. Like we need to throw some more logs on this fire to bring this meaning and purpose back to your training. And for me, that's about unity.
Yeah.
It's about connecting not just with other people, but with the world around me.
Sure.
How much am I in harmony versus discordant? What am I fighting? Because if I'm fighting anything, I'm not surrendered, right? Like I'm not in unity with the world around me.
Sure.
So, my particular methodology for that comes very heavily from reading books that talk about that and meditating and giving. Right? Like giving the most precious commodity that I have, which is my time.
Sure.
Right? So what are you doing to like help somebody else?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like if you go and volunteer somewhere, I guarantee you're going to feel better. Like it's not a waste of time.
Yeah.
Right? It's just not. Like, so how much am I doing for somebody else? So these two principles that have guided me for a while in this sport, one is faith, but it's not faith as we understand it, right? Like generally, like we're all born where we're born. And so the culture, when it comes to like religion, right? The culture is whatever we've been given.
Yeah.
It's not particularly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, we can have faith in the program.
Yeah.
I have faith in my coach, right? Like I have faith in my community, faith in something. I believe in something larger than myself that I'm choosing to be a part of. I'm choosing to buy in. Right? That buy-in to me, it's a spiritual thing. Like there's plenty of people, like I tell them, like, if you no longer believe in your coach or you no longer believe in your program, you need to leave.
Sure.
You need to go. Sure. Right? Like it's not because you're not going to find the same results. Right. It may be the same program from a different coach, but you believe in that coach, you're going to find results.
Totally. 100%.
There's no silver bullet with the program. Like snatch, clean and jerk, squat, pull, press, do some core exercises, try to get better. What are we talking? We could get into the details of volume and load and all that. But like at the end of the day, like do the movements.
Yeah, true.
So there's something more, something deeper, right? And so these are the things that bring me to love, right? These are the things that, and when the closer I am to love, there's less, and I'm going to speak metaphorically, but I mean it like proximal, like my proximal distance to love either allows for or does not allow fear. Okay. So I have through inventory a set of principles that I value. Okay. So these are the things that are important to me, like perseverance, respect, initiative, devotion, endeavor, love, faith, and service, right? This is my constellation of North Stars. Sure. The farther I am from them, the more room there is for fear. When that fear is there, I am not performing.
Gotcha.
Not just in the gym, right? But I'm not performing in my relationships. Sure. I'm not performing in work. I'm just not there. I'm not present. Right? I'm somewhere else. I'm either in the future or in the past. I guarantee you, right?
Yeah.
I'm either scared of the future or I'm resentful about the past.
Yeah.
And that's it, right? We can choose to wake up and we can go out into the garden and harvest all the little resentments that we want to. This person said this to me or did that or whatever. And I have been there and I will be there again. I promise you, right? Because I'm only human. I'm only capable of consistently practicing. I can't hit 95% in the snatch every single time I take it. My goal is to make that as reliable as possible, because then I know I'm going to have a new 100%, right?
Sure.
But it's the same thing. Like, so I go for as long as I can with regular inventory, regular meditation, and regular service, right? I will experience interruptions. And when I interrupt that, I will then wake up and go out to my little resentment garden and harvest those resentments. And then I will go over to the field that carries with it all my fears. And I will go and I will harvest those fears. And I will be full of anxiety all day. And I will not be a good coach. I will not be a good athlete. I will not be a good friend. I will not be a good colleague. None of that, right?
Sure.
So it's a give and take.
Yeah.
But this to me is it. Like, this is really it. Like I say, like I'll improve on the sleep, sure. But I think we get disproportionately focused on the physical and mental element and not this other element, whatever it is. And for me, I just call it spiritual because it's easy for people to understand.
Yeah.
Right. And so how well am I connecting?
Yeah.
Right? How well am I connecting to myself, to you, to the world around me? How well am I connecting to the idea of this sport or whatever sport it is? Like, what's my purpose? That to me comes from meditation and inventory and keeping as close as I can to those things that I care about the most.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we all make choices.
Yeah, totally.
We all make choices. And I don't think that my value system has to be the same as yours.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's it. I mean, that brings me to the present moment.
Yeah.
I wrote a book once. So I used to be a writer, right?
Yeah,
I used to be a writer, and I was employed primarily as a ghostwriter. And I had this book that I wrote for this business consulting company. Mm-hmm. And their whole approach was talking about present moment awareness in a sales deal. And okay. I don't know how, it was an interesting assignment for me. It was really fun to do. But when you think about children learn how to walk, mm-hmm. and they learn how to talk, and they learn all this stuff. And you never see a kid say, I'm never going to be able to walk. Right?
Yeah.
It's because youth is so much more connected to the present moment.
Yeah.
The more experience in our life that we get, the more experiences we have, the more past we have, and the more we can conceptualize the future. Mm-hmm. And so we are more likely to leave the present moment and to go into the past or the future. And when we do that, we stop our ability to learn. We stop our ability to do whatever it is that we're doing. So if I go in for a snatch at X weight and I don't make it, I'm very likely to say, I'm never going to make this again. Right? Or I can't do this, or I'm not going to learn. But if I'm only here right now in the present moment, right? And enjoying and feeling grateful for the opportunity to do the thing that I'm doing.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I will.
Yeah.
I will eventually, right? So in a strength sport, maybe there is a number that I will never be able to hit, right?
Yeah.
But generally speaking, learning how to snatch, right? Like a lot of the work that I do when I'm coaching people that are new to the sport, like I'm constantly reminding them, like, think about the fact that you get to do this.
Yeah.
Like what a tremendous gift to be able-bodied enough to try something that you never even knew about, 6 years ago, you know what I'm saying?
True.
And let's not forget, like, the purpose behind this is to try to do something new and try to learn. And yes, we will eventually get to performance. Yeah. But for now, like right now, stay in this moment. And there's a trick that they were talking about, they wanted me to write about in the book. Which is whenever you find yourself drifting into the future or the past, just rub your fingers together. You just rub two fingers together because it brings you right back to the present moment, and you're able to, Eckhart Tolle talks about, one conscious breath is a meditation, right? Like if I can return to knowing that I'm breathing, like I'm going to return to the present moment. Every spiritual guru, every spiritual book that I've ever read, they all talk about it. This is salient, right? It means it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Every single book that touches on the idea of faith in some level or another is going to talk about being right here, right now. Right. And when I am, I'm unbeatable.
Yeah.
I'm unbeatable. Right. Like I'm unbeatable on the platform. I'm unbeatable at work. I'm the best version of myself.
Right.
So maybe that's mental health. I don't know.
Sure.
I'm not really too concerned with whether I'm right or wrong in the definition or the domain. But whatever that is, that thing, that's important.
Yeah.
You know, I think for me, like that's what carries me through more of those 5-hour night sleeps, you know.
Totally.
And it certainly allows me to allow myself some grace, but it keeps it fun, you know. Like the thing that I generally like, I don't really like to talk about. Like I'll put stuff on Instagram, but I'll keep it like captions. I don't like those big long captions and all that kind of stuff. I usually just say weightlifting is fun, you know. And I can't get there. I cannot get to the place where it's fun unless I'm like right here, right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like we go into competition with certain expectations of what we're going to do. It never goes that way. Right. It was Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan till they get punched in the mouth. You know, like that's the thing I know is going to happen. I'm going to get punched in the mouth one way or another. Yeah. How do I respond to that? How do I bounce back? How do I stay at sea level? If the snatches go real well in a competition, I may get riding too high and then I'm going to flush and I'm not going to be able to clean and jerk.
Sure.
Right. Or the snatches go terribly. And then I say, well, there's too much ground to make up in the clean and jerk. I may as well. That's nonsense. Right. If I can just stay right at sea level as much as possible, then I'm right sized. You know, nothing. Insanity is a loss of perspective and sense of proportion.
Right.
So if I can keep everything in its right size, I'm going to be okay. It gets out of proportion when I go into the future, when I go into the past.
I like that a lot. That's not what I expected, obviously, when I asked that question, but that was far beyond better. That's fantastic. I like that. I got a couple takeaways too.
Great.
I'm gonna rub the fingers a little bit.
Rub your fingers.
That reminds me of Inception, right? They had grabbed like the token or the trinket.
Yeah.
I forgot what it was.
Something
to
like
bring
that.
them back into the
to let
present.
them know what's the dream world and what's the real world.
I wonder if that was a giant metaphor now that I think about that. Because that movie just confused me. But then I,
Come on, Matt. Come on. It's not that complicated.
Yeah. I think I had to watch it 2 or 3 times. I'm like, I got that. Okay. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. There was something else. I'm like, I'm going to literally like tactical information. I'm like, I'm going to start doing that. But I'm going to have to actually re-listen to remember what it was at this point.
I would say that the best thing is to find a short phrase that reminds you of the spirit behind what I said. Okay. Right? Like what I'm saying it comes from decades of practice.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So the thing that works is a phrase that reminds you of the spirit behind it.
Right.
So that you can then take it and make it your own.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
And so, what is it? Like, I'm not going to rattle off a ton of those. Like for me, it's be here now.
Cool.
But that's not mine. I want to give credit where credit is due. That's Ram Dass, right?
Okay.
And he, there's a book called Be Here Now. I recommend everybody read it. It's a killer book that has a lot of ideas in it that I think are worth considering. But that, that's it for me, right? Like if I'm in this present moment, I'm all right.
That's cool.
I'm going to be okay. Yeah.
I like it. All right. So we'll move toward our wrap up. This has been awesome. I think we're getting close to the 2-hour mark. Which is great, which I appreciate your time. Thank you. So last bullet points to go over, anything in store for the future, whether it's Providence Barbell Club or anything else you want to plug. And then one quote, mantra, or saying that you get to put on a billboard, just kind of Rhode Island billboard, just to kind of tell the people of Rhode Island, maybe motivation, education, something like that.
I guess I already said that.
Yeah.
I'm going to put Be Here Now on a billboard.
You know
what I'm saying?
True.
Be Here Now. Or Learn to Love. That's my second one. Learn to Love. I'm not here. I'm not done. Yeah. Right? I'm just not done. Like I have more learning to do. And what that learning is learning how to love better. So be here now or learn to love, I guess. I'm such a sap.
No, that's good.
I guess, check out our Instagram, Providence Barbell Club on Instagram. We're providencebarbell.com. If you're local to Rhode Island, people drive an hour and a half to come to our club. So you're not too far away if you want to come to the club. Poke us if you want a seminar. We have punch cards. You can do drop-ins. You can come and train 4 days a week at our club. We try to position ourselves as a resource. We don't care what you do. We care that we can match what you need. So people come 1 day a week, 1 day a month, 3 days a week, 5 days a week, whatever. Just come check us out.
Awesome. I love it. Well, cool. We'll wrap up with that. Thank you, Dave. Really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Rhody Strength, we're signing off.